We are into the topic of similarities and differences between religion and critical race theory now. I think that we've covered that, like religions, CRT provides people a sense of belonging, purpose, meaning, and identity. I believe that the soul of learning is repetition, by the way. And I'm teaching this because I hope that people will learn it. Religion and critical race theory, blasphemy has its equivalent in censorship and speech codes, cancel culture. The rejection of science and critical thinking. They don't want to admit that separating biological fathers from children is the way that women and children get abused. That is the main cause, okay? What you want to do, if you want women and children not to get abused, is find some way to keep biological parents attached to their biological children. That is so well proven in the scientific literature. I don't think that anything has been proven more clearly than that. But, some contradictions here, some contradictions there. Really what they're about is gaining power. So they want the power to raise your kids. They want the power to take your kids and pay for somebody to raise your kids. And, okay, there's another thing about critical thinking that should be mentioned here, I think, and that is that I mean what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's the way you screw kids up. I'm not saying that in the current circumstance the government shouldn't be paying for some form of universal daycare for lower income people. I'm not saying that, because there are people who really need it, and by providing them with it, they'll avoid a lot of abuse and indignity and whatever you want to say. So you have to chew gum and walk at the same time. In the current situation, it's probably a good idea, but by God, the current situation is pathetic. Okay, there's the in-group, out-group. You know how much you hate Trump supporters. Hate is a bonding experience. You get together, raise a glass, hate Trump, you think that you're doing something. The profit-seeking. That's the journalists and the historians and the archaeologists and the university professors and all that. They're making big coin off this critical race theory stuff, just like the church did off the state, or the state did off the church, however you want to look at it. The Salem witch trials is what Margaret Atwood spoke about. Salem witch trials, Me Too, are similar in that you're guilty going in. The symbolic dominance, replace the place names, tear down the statues, burn down the churches. That is an act of dominance, okay? All religions have done that in the past. It's not just Islam that's done that. Christianity did it. Christianity had original sin. Original sin now is whiteness. The soul searching and the confession, that's always been a big part of the church. It's not been necessarily a bad part of the church. I'm not saying that the church has always been a bad thing. I don't believe that. But it's been a mixed bag, obviously. So it used to be that Christians would get around and talk about how they had sinned against God, or got horny for their neighbor's wife, or whatever, and they'd confess. And the Catholic Church, that was a big part. And then they would pay enough money, they'd be forgiven, probably. And so there was the church, there was the confession, there was the soul searching, there was the ritual. And so now what they want us to do is all look into our soul and discover how racist we are. So they've got the anti-racism classes. Anti-racism is the thing. Just look it up. It's real. The ritual is the land acknowledgments that are profound and beautiful looking and sounding. But they raise the expectation in Aboriginal people that they're actually going to get the land back. And that's another big moneymaker for a certain class of people, quite often white. Here's a distinction that I think that we have to observe. There's a First Nation person. You could say that you're First Nation because you've been accepted by a tribe, which I think half the time is bogus as well. But if you're Aboriginal, that means that you look kind of like a Chinese person. You're born in Canada. Your ancestors born in Canada. You look kind of Asian. That's what Aboriginal means. If you don't look Aboriginal, then you're not Aboriginal in the racial sense. Though perhaps you've learned a lot from the culture and all that. That's true. Okay, and this is where it gets real interesting and entertaining, maybe even. I don't know. Actually, it's not. It's the opposite of entertaining. But the church is obsessed with controlling sex, which it needed to be at one time to control reproduction. You couldn't have people running around having kids all of the time. And the CRT are similarly obsessed with sex. And what they want to do is explore every possible nook and cranny and do everything and talk about everything because, honestly, a lot of them are teenagers. That's what teenagers like. And so they're obsessed with sex all the time, talking about all that. It's boring. At a certain age, you find all of that boring. In the next lecture, we're going to talk about how it's incredibly destructive. Critical race theory is similar to the Catholic Church. Let's put it that way.